Okay, so now you need to calculate measures of center. Um, so what I would do here with calculating measures of center is you can go ahead and build off of your histogram worksheet. Um, this is the worksheet based off of my speed random variable. And I just left the last video I did on this with histograms with histogram number 2. So that's what I'm going to use here for calculating measures of center. Now, a couple other things you're going to need besides your spreadsheet is you're going to also need this MyOpenMath question open because we're going to work through this MyOpenMath question with your data. And you're also going to need the text file of just the data of that random variable. So here, this is the text file for my speed random variable with all the data inside of it. So you'll need these three things. We'll kind of be using them all together as we kind of work forward here. Um, so measures of center. Let me go ahead and maybe type in, let me see here, measures of center, like that. And I want to make this maybe bold. And I'm going to take this histogram and I'm going to move it down a little bit to give myself some room. We're going to need to calculate the mean, the median, and the arithmetic mode. Now we need to calculate the arithmetic mode because of the nature of the data, right? The data has, all of these weird decimal places. And the fact that 29.1 happens to occur most times isn't really going to be truly reflective of being a mode at all. Okay. Um, so we need to calculate the arithmetic mode, but we'll get there. So the first thing I want to do, let me go ahead and bold these things here. All right, is let's go to the MyOpenMath problem. So it's talking about resources that you're going to need. So it's going to be the spreadsheet and the information about the histogram. Um, let's see here. You're expected to complete this problem with spreadsheet software. And let's start here with question 0. So which software package are you using? So for me, I'm using Microsoft Excel. So I'm going to choose Microsoft Excel, and the name of my random variable is speed, and that's in miles per hour. Okay, there are no more questions to answer here, so I'm going to click Submit. And now it wants me to paste in the data set for the speed random variable. So I'm going to open my text document. I'm going to do a select all, and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to come over here where it says paste below, and I'm going to right click and choose paste. And just verify that it kind of looks visually, it looks correct. That looks good. And I'm going to click submit. All right. So now as I scroll down, it's showing that I've got 241 datums. The maximum number of decimal places that I truly have is 1. And we can see here, this is all the data. Okay. So question 3, chosen histogram parameters. So previously you created 2 histograms for this random variable speed. The first histogram had k low number of classes, each w low wide. The second histogram had k high number of classes, each w high wide. So that's, referencing here histogram 2, where I had a k high and a w high and a starting point. Okay, so I'm just going to take that information that I already made and I'm going to enter that in here. So my starting point for me was 0, and I had 16 classes, and each class was 10 wide. All right, so I'll click submit. All right. So now it's on to the next question where we need to calculate the mean and the median. So here you want to use the functions for mean and median that are in Microsoft Excel. And so Excel does not have a mean function, it has an average function, which is what we're going to use. And it also has a median function. And so that has to be calculated. So we're going to come over here to the spreadsheet. And here we are underneath this mean heading. This is where we're going to enter our average function. So I'm going to hit the equal sign and start to type the word average. And you can see right here, average is highlighted, returns the average of its arguments. So I'm going to, I think I have to double click. There you go. And now it wants all of my numbers. So the numbers are everything here in this first column. So from A1, you can see here in the formula bar, we're going from A1. I'm going to scroll down to the last row of my data, which for me is A241, holding down the shift key, left clicking, and now it's everything from A1 to A241. And I'm going to go ahead and add a right parentheses there and hit the green check mark. Okay. So here it calculated a mean of 55.3506. So let me look at my open math problem. And it wants the mean to 1 decimal place of accuracy. So I'm going to put 55.4. Like that. Okay, there's that one. Now we need the median. So here, I'm going to put equals because I want to use a spreadsheet function. And if I start to type the word median, there we have a median function. So I'm going to double click that. And now it wants the same thing again, it wants the column of data. So equals median left parentheses. I'm going to select A1, scroll down, hold down the shift key, left click, and then I'll type right parentheses there, hit the green check mark, and now it calculated the median, which is 55. So now I'm going to go back to my open math problem. And for the median, it wants 1 decimal place of accuracy. So I'm going to put 55.0. Okay, and I'll hit submit. Scroll down. Okay, good. It liked the mean and it liked the median. And the mean and the median, again, it's based off of all this data that you pasted in. Okay. All right. So now the next part is to calculate the arithmetic mode. And hopefully this arithmetic mode calculation or page looks familiar because this is the exact same way that your homework was set up to calculate the arithmetic mode. So on the left-hand side, we have the frequency table of your data. On the right-hand side, we have the histogram. This is the equation for the arithmetic mode. And down here is where you enter in each component of the arithmetic mode. Okay, so let's do that here in the spreadsheet. So here to calculate the arithmetic mode, we're going to need the lower class boundary of the modal class. We need the width of each class. We need the frequency of the modal class, the frequency of the previous class, and the frequency of the succeeding class. All right. Um, all right, so let's identify the modal class. Well, the modal class is the class with the highest frequency. So for me, that's 65. So if I look at my frequency distribution table, I can label this. This is the frequency of my modal class. Now that's going to be 65. All right, so I can type that in. What's the lower class boundary of the modal class? So maybe to make things easier, let me take this row and let me color that maybe green. Okay. So what's the lower class boundary of the modal class? Well, here's the modal class. The lower class boundary is the lower bound for the modal class. And so that is 60. So I'm going to come over here and type in 60. All right, what was the width? Well, the width was 10. Now, FP is the frequency of the preceding class. So the preceding class would be 41. So I'm going to type 41 here. And the succeeding class is the class that succeeds the modal class. And so that has a frequency of 22. I'm going to put 22 there. All right, so now we've got all the variables we need for this equation. This equation needs the lower class boundary of the modal class, which we have here. We need the width, which we have here. We need the frequency of the modal class, which is used twice there and there. We need the frequency of the preceding class, which is used in two places. And then we need the frequency of the succeeding class, which is used once right there. All right. So let's copy that formula over into our spreadsheet. Okay, so right here is where we're going to put the formula, including all of these components. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double click and hit equals. Now I'm going to type that out up here in the formula bar, so it's going to be easier to kind of read it all as I'm typing it in. So the first thing that we need is we need the lower class boundary of the modal class. So that was 60. I'm just going to click this cell. So notice it put Q22. Now that's plus the width, and the width is here. Okay, and that's going to be times everything in parentheses. And inside these parentheses, we have a numerator divided by a denominator. So what I've done is I've just kind of added successive parentheses here. So we're going to put everything in our numerator inside the parentheses here, and everything in the denominator we're going to have inside our parentheses there. So in the numerator, we want to have the frequency of our modal class minus the frequency of the preceding class. So you'll notice up here in the formula bar, it's S22 minus T22. So S22 minus T22. Yours are going to be different, okay? But if you're setting it up the same as me, it should be very similar. All right. Now over here, for the denominator, I'm putting the cursor between this pair of parentheses. And now in the denominator, we have 2. And then I'm putting a asterisk for times the modal class, frequency of the modal class. So I'm going to click here. There we go. And then that's going to be minus the frequency of the preceding class. I'll click there, minus the frequency of the succeeding class, and I'll click there. Okay. So, that looks like my entire formula is in there. So I'll hit the green check mark, and it calculates all of that to be 63.5821. So 63.5821, that looks about right because the middle of this class is 65. And so 63.51 is somewhere a little bit to the left of that. So that looks about right. Let's go to the MyOpenMath problem. And okay, I need to put in all these parameters. So the lower class boundary of the modal class, um, let's see here, it wants it to 1 decimal point of accuracy. So that would be 60.0. The width, it wants the width to 1 decimal place of accuracy. So for me, that was 10.0. The frequency of the modal class was 65. Frequency of the preceding class was 41. And the frequency of the succeeding class is 22. And it wants the arithmetic mode with 1 decimal place of accuracy. So for me, that's going to be 63.6. Oops. Like that. All right, so if I've entered in this formula correctly and put in these values incorrectly, when I hit submit, it should tell me if everything was right or wrong. There we go. All of these values that went into this formula were correct, and the arithmetic mode that I calculated was correct. All right, it says congratulations. So it's these values of mean, median, and mode that you're going to put into your report. Now, you don't need to calculate mean, median, and mode for all of your histograms. Only the histograms, the two histograms that you're choosing to use in your discussion. Okay. Those are the only two measures of center you need to calculate. All right. So I think maybe the hardest thing about all of this, because you've used this formula, you've had this problem in your homework already, was in calculating it here in the spreadsheet software. Okay. So once again, inside the spreadsheet software, let me see, can I? No, I don't want to quite minimize that. I just kind of went in order from left to right, with this equation. And I put all these things in pretty much from left to right that they're used here. Okay. The trick is just putting the parentheses in to, have some outer parentheses here to encapsulate the fraction, and then have a pair of parentheses around the numerator, and then a pair of parentheses around the denominator. So when I click back over here in the spreadsheet and I select this cell, you can see that I've got one pair of parentheses on the far left and on the far right for the whole fraction. And then inside of that, I have a pair of parentheses for the numerator, then the division symbol, and then I've got a left parentheses and a right parentheses here for the denominator. And then just hit the green check mark, and there's your calculated value. All right. Let me know if you have any questions.